germs.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Anything and Everything podcast. I'm Dan Gill, and we got
Steve is a liar right over here. That's my name now. I changed it legally. Right at this minute, actually. No, my name is Nodro, and welcome to the Anything and Everything podcast, which is what Daniel just.
Sir.
Today we're gonna be talking about our 10 favorite video games, right, of all time.
But before that, make sure you go and stream All I Ever Wanted on all platforms. It's called All I Ever Wanted by the artist name Zenodro.
Zenodro, Zenodro, produced by Malloy and engineered masterfully by Sir Nicholas. Please check it out when you can. Thank you.
All right, so top 10 video games. That's what we got.
Well, let's see if we can. All right. So before we get into like the actual like content of like what video games we picked, why don't we? I'm trying to think. Please check it out when you can. Thank you. All right, here, there's like some back. Can you hear? Are you like watching it?
Yeah, I was checking Twitch, so I can post the link
Okay.
on my story.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. But I was saying, right? So, in regards to, let me try to get undressed on this shit. Let's see. Oh yeah. So when we're talking about video games, right? What is the criteria that you used, right, in order to pick, the top 10 in your list? What is that criteria?
I sat and thought about all the video games I played over my life and which ones I enjoyed the most. Like which ones I had the most fun playing in terms of adventure, action, long term playability games. I would like go back and play even after like I finished the main story
Uh-huh.
to do like all the side shit.
Yeah. So you're a completionist?
Not necessarily, but like I mean, there are very few games that I've completed like 100%.
I never complete a game 100%. There's always like those collectibles. I could give an example off the top of my head. Like in the Batman Arkham series, you have to collect the Riddler trophies, right? And on Pokemon Arceus, right? You have to collect like all the Pokemon, or just like all across all the
Yeah,
games, you have to like collect all the Pokemon, right? So that so that you could complete the Pokedex. And
right.
so throughout, there's a lot of games that are like that, and I've never been one to do that unless there's got to be like some sort of big incentive. I think the closest I was not that I was, but I was like I was a little inclined to do Pokemon Arceus because spoiler alert that the only way to actually see Arceus is if you actually collect all the Pokemon that are available in the
Yep.
game. So if it's like part of like the storyline, then yeah, I'll do it. But otherwise, in something like Batman, the
Right.
Arkham series, I kind of refuse to do that because I have better things to do than.
I mean, I feel like it also depends on like how strong you have to be in order to progress through the game. Sometimes, especially with an RPG, like if you have to be a certain level to get shit done, then like you have to do a bunch of like side missions to get that extra XP that you
Mhm.
need to unlock different skills and all that jazz.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree with that. But yeah, so what were the things again, just so that you could repeat what exactly?
So if I had to make like a nice list, I would say storyline,
Okay.
um, action, uh, long term playability. Like, can I sit there and play the game for a while without getting bored of playing?
Got it.
Um, what else? There are certain games that I would say it came down to how fun they are to play with other people, for sure, on my list. Um,
Okay.
and how good the game looks. I mean that yeah, it won't transfer as well with games that came out in the '90s that we were playing, but like nowadays, I have some games up there that they just look amazing when you play them.
That's why, like, I know what you're talking about, but like, I really like when they do remakes, like actual HD remakes for a
Oh, the
lot of stuff.
remastered versions.
Yeah.
Mm.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but they have the Crash Bandicoot series, the Spyro series. They remastered those to
The
make it
Final
look.
Fantasy series they remastered.
They remaster it like every like 2 months. But yeah, so those types of series, I do actually like when they do that. Like they keep, what's at the core, like what's important and what's good, and then they just kind
Right,
of improve on that.
I agree.
So that is what I really like in
So
regard.
what is your what did you like think about when you made your list?
So let me look at my list, and then I'm just trying to, because I like actually like took the time, right, to actually write it out and see what I wanted. So, but right when I was like thinking of the list, right,
Mhm.
I was thinking of what you think of, like, oh, like your favorite video games, usually like how fun I had like when I was playing them, right?
Yeah,
Was I able to keep my attention, you know, for a long period of time? And that's very important to me just because I kind of lose attention a lot. There's, I think, some games that I have that I haven't even opened, that I haven't played, like Detroit. I forgot. That was like one of them. And I have some others that I haven't. I had like Tomb Raider. The second one, The Rise of the Tomb Raider, right? No, it was not The
okay.
Rise. And so when I look at the list, right, what I kind of looked at was not only that, but sense of originality, right?
Mhm.
Um, the replayability, meaning like, do I just play it once and then it's a one and done, or is it something that I could keep going back to over a period of time? And I
See,
feel like,
I'll never do that with a video game. I'll never beat a video game and then go back and beat it again.
no, 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 but that's not what I'm talking about, though. I'm like talking about, multiplayer games like that. So that was like
Okay,
very important. You know what I'm saying? That has a lot of replayability in itself. I'm not saying just because of the story. And like, I agree with you. There's only a few games that I've ever replayed. So I'm gonna probably, I think I'm gonna change one. Uh,
I did change one on my list.
mhm, mhm. So I'll probably put that in there. But yeah, so influ- there's some games that I didn't add, but I have it as like honorable mentions because I believe they deserve a spot on the list, but because I haven't personally played them, because they're only through influential like things, like I played games that maybe have like to do with that or something like that,
Mhm.
right? So I added them on the honorable mention list because I don't think they deserve, I don't think it's like right for me to put it on my list since I didn't play them.
Right.
So originality, creativity, story as well, like you said, is a very important aspect of what I feel makes a great video game.
Mhm.
Um, you know, replayability, as I said, and I'm trying to think. You know, I try to be a little objective because I know some of the game when we were younger, right? And so I'm not going to get into the specifics now, but
It's the nostalgia element.
yes, the nostalgia element does play a big part in it, right? And
Mhm.
so I did try to keep that in mind. The list does seem, it could seem a little bit skewed in that aspect with the nostalgia factor kept in, but that's why I made an honorable mentions list because there are some games that kind of came out after, right? That I
Mhm.
maybe wouldn't consider like my favorite games, but I can understand why some people would consider them their favorite games. And that's
Right.
like really important. You understand?
I got you.
Mhm. So, without further ado, let's get on to the list. Do you want to start it off?
All right. Yeah, I can start it off. So my list is in no particular order. These are just like my top 10 games.
Oh, no order.
No particular order.
Yeah.
So we got Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast,
Oh, that's
um, Pokemon Emerald for Game Boy Advance. So I'll just do that entire. We can just put that entire series on the list: Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. Then we got Pokemon Stadium for the N64, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Switch, and we got Super Mario 64 for N64, and then Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm for multiple platforms, Mortal Kombat X, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and Elden Ring. That's my top.
That's your top. See, the
Mm.
reason I didn't put, I'm gonna just say, I didn't put any fighting games in mine. I'm not a fighting game guy. Actually, there is one game that I'll put on an honorable mention list that is a fighting game, and it's the only fighting game that I've ever really loved.
See,
Every other
I love
fighting
fighting games.
I don't really like them. Street Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat. Well, I played them. I've had GameFly where I would like rent, you know,
Throwback.
combat and stuff like that, but I would never like buy it outright. I think the replayability, at least for me, is not super high.
See, I mean, you do have a fighting game on your list, though.
Ooh, yes, but that's different. It's a platformer kind of. It's I mean, it's
It's a
like not
fighting game.
it's not like the one versus one type of fighting games. Those are different.
I mean, it could be one versus one.
Yeah, but it's like a different type.
There's
Like
more
you know,
mechanics to it. I get you. I
yeah,
get you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, so I know you didn't have like a real set list in regards to like a 1 to 10 or 10 to 1, I should say. But do you want to give like an explanation for some of your picks? Maybe
Yeah, I'll give
specific.
an explanation. I mean, I'll go. I mean, Sonic Adventure I put on my list just because like that was just like a really like I love Sonic and Tails. Like I just love this the entire series really. And Sonic Adventures, when the Dreamcast Sega Dreamcast released that game, I feel like it was like out of this world. Like you could do so, like it wasn't just like going through and doing things. Like they added a whole another aspect where like you can raise eggs and things like that and bring like they just brought a new world to the Sonic game. So that's why I put it on the list.
Sonic
Pokemon Emerald.
Frontiers is coming. Wait, Sonic Frontiers is coming soon. I hear it's. I've been hearing good things about it.
I don't know how I feel about Sonic Frontiers. I feel like it's too open world for me.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that. That's actually something I want to. I'll start off with that. So keep that in down so I don't forget. Right, open world thing. That's which is one thing that's been bothering me. Um, but yeah.
Okay, then I put the Pokemon Stadium. I put up there because once again that was like not only was it a good like versus Pokemon game, but like there were like mini games you can play that were fun and challenging. And then they had there was this thing that you can connect to your N64 controller where you can play your Game Boy games. So like I would play my Pokemon Yellow on my TV because I had the component or the adapter, so you can play it via Pokemon Stadium. And then I put Super Mario 64 on there because Super Mario 64 is a classic, and I really enjoyed playing that game. The way they had it set up with like the challenges and then the boss fights was pretty nice.
Hmm. Wait, can you
Uh,
send me the Twitch link to my phone? Sorry.
I'll just send it to this group. Let me know if you got it.
It's not. That's not the one.
The Twitch link.
Yeah, I'm saying that's not the one I wanted sent on. I can't post a story. That's going to my laptop.
Okay.
But Dan, why did you pick Naruto? I never watched Naruto. It's one of the only animes I've never watched.
I picked Naruto because not only is Naruto my favorite anime, this was my favorite Naruto fighting game. There's another Naruto. There's a couple Naruto games that I have in my honorable mentions as well. Like this one, it was just the way the fighting system was set up in this one was probably the best one that they had made to date for when this came out.
Mm.
And then I had
What is that
more.
game even about, though?
It's a fighting game. Like so, you play the story of Naruto Shippuden, and like you're unlocking characters. So there's like a bunch of characters from the story that you can play as in terms of like your character. Um, so it's pretty more fighting game. So I would say in terms of like story goes, it's like a Super Smash Brothers story. Like you're
Ah.
going through, yeah, you're going through fighting, and like you can do a lot of moving around the
Mhm.
stage when you're in a fight. Like you can't jump on platforms and shit like that, but you can definitely move around a bit to dodge and shit like that. And then the next one is also a fighting game. I had Mortal Kombat X. Mortal Kombat is one of my favorite fighting games, and X, the different characters you had, along with the various specials that they could utilize. That's what is on the list.
Okay.
Uh, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. That pretty much ran my entire high school life. That's why this is on this list. In terms of multiplayer, it had one of the best online multiplayers for me, in my opinion. And the campaign was pretty. And then
I never liked
so
campaign.
I always play the campaigns before I play any multiplayer for Call of Duty
Get
games
used to controllers, or
to get used to the controllers and just to get a sense for like what other weapons are going to be used throughout. And sometimes
okay.
the stories are pretty good. Next is Ghost of Tsushima. That came out a couple years ago, and the ability to play as like a samurai and have those different skills, and the way the game looked was probably one of the best games in the past few years for me,
Okay.
which is why this is on my top 10. And then Elden Ring, uh, a lot of people, some people don't like it because it's one of those games where like you have to die a bunch of times before you actually win. But I don't mind that. I like being challenged, and it's like a very challenging game. And it's also one of those games where like you create the character that you want. And with these kinds of types of games, I usually could play like a wizard type of role,
Hmm.
and I really enjoyed the way the game looked and the difficulty level and the rewards. It's also one of those games where like you have to go on YouTube to figure out how to get shit that you want. So I had fun doing that. Not gonna lie.
Ah, is that your list? Did you go through it all?
Yeah, I went through them all.
Awesome. All right.
So now your turn. Let's
So
give
yeah,
us your list.
I did make a few mentions. I did want to say I wrote right open world, right? So we want to start with the honorable mentions that I had, right?
Okay. See, I was gonna get my
So,
honorable mentions at the end.
oh, you make your honorable mentions. I'll go right ahead.
No, I mean at the end, like before we sign off.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I'll start with them. So one thing that I had, right? You talked about, Sonic Frontiers, how it's coming out, I believe, in November, and you've seen like some gameplay with it. It's all over YouTube. It's,
Mhm.
very open worlds, right?
Right.
You think it's not appropriate for a Sonic game, right? I believe that's like your
Yeah,
train of
because
thought.
I feel like when you think of Sonic, you think of like some sort of like targeted idea where like they direct you in a certain way to like get coins and fight bosses and stuff like that. And when I was looking at the Sonic Frontier gameplay, it just seemed like very it seemed like too open to the point where it looks a little chaotic.
Chaos. But
No pun intended with the Chaos Emeralds.
yeah, yeah. Open world. Yeah, but okay, so here's the thing. Sonic Adventure was actually kind of a little open world. For its time, it was very open world.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You
But
know,
there was like a method to the madness.
but I think there is, if you look at the actual gameplay, there are times like you get transported to different places within that world where it's like the same gameplay, I think, as in like how old Sonic games were, like in Sonic Adventure. But one thing that I want to, I'm not trying to defend it is, but what I'm trying to say is also the open world thing, not that I'm getting tired of it. I understand that's like, kind of the way things have to kind of go with certain, video games, now.
Mm,
Um, I just don't like how like some of these games have been regarded as like some of the best because they're just kind of copying off of like another game style
yeah.
originally, which I'll get into because that's one of my top games, right? But like the game that like IGN said that was the top video game of all time a few years ago was Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I put it as an honorable mention because so many people liked it. But while I think it's a really good game, I do not agree with that at all. Like it has
Uh,
just copied the formula of like what an open world game is,
mm,
right? And just made it into its own thing, right? And yeah, it takes a little, it does a little tweaks, right? And Zelda's not really known for its like storytelling, I should say. Like its overall story is amazing, right? But like the details within
yeah.
it aren't, you know what I mean? No one knows, because there's like no dialogue from Link and stuff like that. Um, there was definitely more of it here. Not from Link, but from like the other characters and stuff like that. But the open world thing has already been done, and just because Zelda did it doesn't like, yeah, it's a great game. It should have definitely won maybe game of the year for that year, but to call it the best
Mm.
game of all time, I think is
I
nonsense.
also feel like that year, I don't think I can't remember what came out, but I feel like there wasn't much challenge when it came to what else came out with.
Yeah.
But
No, but like,
my
yeah, yeah, no, 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 and that's not even the problem. I don't care. Like, it could have said like the best game of the decade, best game, but you're to say the best game of all time. Well,
my only thing with the issue with Breath of the Wild, which is what my issue is with like a lot of open world games, and like what my issue I assume to be with some Sonic Frontiers is that it's open world with there, but there's a lack of direction. Like you give me all this space, you don't really lead me too much. It's more about me like traversing this open space and finding shit versus like you giving me some sort of like path to follow in a sense. Because like with Breath of the Wild, you can go like different things. Like to go to like one specific area. You can go all the way to the west and find something. Go all the way to the east, all the way north. And I like it took me a little bit. Had me like traverse the world for like 5 minutes, not do and not have anything come of it.
mhm.
So that was my only issue with Breath of the Wild, and the fact that like your weapons will shatter and you have to find new weapons.
I got used to
Like,
that after a while, but
I
yeah.
hated that mechanic. I hated it. Because you get strong weapons and then they break, and you're like, now I have the shitty weak weapons again.
All right.
But all right, go ahead, continue.
So yeah, that's one of my honorable mentions, only because it is a really good game. But my only, problem with it is that it's was mentioned as greatest game of all time. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'll explain that more in a little bit, right? So my other honorable mentions, right? So get ready. There's like a few of them. Ready? Because I actually
Okay.
took a lot of time making this list because I was like, I don't want to just like make a list and be like, just the games that just come off the top of my head. You know what I mean? Because I played so
Mhm.
many. We played video games since we were kids, right? So there's
Right.
so many of them. And so I really took the time to kind of look and remember like games that I have played and stuff like that. So games that I didn't mention in my top 10, but didn't mention in my honorable mentions list are the
Mhm.
following, and I'll go over a little bit each. Bloodborne, right? Bloodborne is like, I believe, right, is the basis for what Elden Ring became, right?
Souls game.
Dark Souls shit. See, that's why I put it on my honorables mentions list. So that's why Bloodborne and Dark Souls. I always get those two confused. I am
Yep.
an idiot. And oh, that is definitely a blooper here. I'm super idiot. All right. So Dark Souls, that was the one I was thinking of. Is up there. What else? Mario Kart 64, right? Mario Kart 64 is up there. I didn't put it on the top.
I kind of like. This is one of my honorable mentions. I put Mario Kart 8. I love Mario Kart 8.
hmm Mario Kart 8 is good. It's good. It has all. I like it because it has, it's the current one, but it has like all the current stages and all of that stuff, right? If
And the
I'm not
old stages.
mistaken. All right. Let me see. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Mario Kart 64 is definitely an honorable mention. Zelda Wind Waker. It just took Zelda in a totally new direction. All right. I actually hated it when it came out because the original pitch for what Zelda Wind Waker was supposed to be to come out instead of Zelda Wind Waker was supposed to be like this 3D realistic Zelda that was more aligned to
Mhm.
Zelda Twilight Princess that came out a little while after Wind Waker, right?
Okay.
So they actually had like a demo that played, I think, when the GameCube was first announced. They had like a video of the Zelda game that was supposed to go out, as
Mhm.
well as a video of Luigi's Mansion, which also came out on the GameCube. Oh, that's another
Okay.
honorable mention, Luigi's Mansion, but
Definitely.
which I didn't have before. But Mario Kart, yeah. So Zelda Wind Waker, though, I didn't like it at first, and I played it and I fell in love with it. It was such a great game. It's actually one of my favorite characters to play on Super Smash Brothers, right? So it overall was a great game. It kept the core elements of Zelda, going through different,
Mhm.
temples, right? Same kind of story wise, but that artwork, right? It was just so beautifully done. So that's why it's not on my top 10, and I'll explain that in a little while too. Everything will come together, right? Elden Ring, of course, hearing a lot of amazing things on it. Of course, for anyone that knows about Elden Ring, it was helped created by George R. R. Martin, which is the creator of Game of Thrones, or
Not to get confused with J.R.R. Twin.
George R. R. Martin. I say Jr. George R. R. Martin, right? Creator of Game of Thrones. For those who read the books, The Song of Fire and Ice, of Ice and Fire, Fire and Ice. I read all the books, but it's been so
I
long.
don't know. I didn't watch
Not the
Game of
next
Thrones.
one, Winds of Winter, but that's a story for another day. So, Elden Ring, Super Mario 64, of course. You already talked about it, right? Super Mario
Mhm.
64 is amazing. If I'm not mistaken, it was the first 3D platform for
For
Mario,
Mario. Mhm.
right? So it was amazing, just from like the beginning, when you get onto the start screen and then you like can like move around with the faces and
Yeah.
stuff. That was really dope, right? It was like open world in itself a little bit, it
Mhm.
was like in its own realm. It had like its own
It's
like
open world with direction.
Mhm. Uh, Minecraft. I never really played Minecraft, but my brothers have loved it. Spent
Not my game.
hours playing. It's really for the younger, like Gen Z generations. Definitely had to include that in there. Same thing with World of Warcraft. I never played it, but it really made a really huge dent in the gaming community to the point that even a South Park episode was made out of it, which is actually one of my favorite South Park episodes. Another game which is usually mentioned in a lot of top 10 lists, is Portal 2, which I did play. Amazing game. Took like, making like, it's just about like puzzles and being able to complete them really at its core. That's what it's about.
Mm.
And it was just so good because it actually made you think in some ways. And
Okay.
while the story wasn't too complicated, it was just still beautifully made. I did have Mortal Kombat honorable mentions for the same, and I didn't put it in my top 10 for the reason I told you before. It just doesn't really speak to me, I guess you could say, right? You could say the same thing about like Tekken and other like type of fighting games. They never really. I never really got them in a way. And then I have Pokemon Snap 64. I had to put that in there. Amazing game. Red Dead Redemption. Um,
One or
again,
two.
I would say two. And
Okay.
then Donkey Kong 64, which is one of my favorites. And so I'm gonna switch two things around. So I'm gonna start with my top 10 now. Right? I know there's a lot of honorable mentions, but I thought I had to mention them. So originally I had Call of Duty 2 as number 10.
Not Modern Warfare 2, it's Call of Duty 2.
Yeah, just Call of Duty 2. Call of Duty 2 is
Okay.
really what kind of like brought. I remember it was the first time like it was like the internet was like kind of getting on it on the Xbox and the PlayStation 2, and it was just very basic, but it was really good. So Call of Duty
Mm.
2, and it's what brought on like the next freaking like 2 decades of games of Call of Duty, right? Helped bring about. So that one, I'm switching with Banjo Kazooie.
Okay.
Played it twice. There's a nostalgic factor to it. The way that it's portrayed, it's really amazing. Which reminds me of another honorable mention, Conker's Bad Fur Day, but I'll just leave that there. But Banjo Kazooie, right? That's that's gonna be switched to Call of Duty 2. Um, I just love the interactions between the characters, the story. While it's kind of like in the way like how Zelda's kind of done, where it's like kind of a very simple story, right? While Zelda
Mm.
is like you know, uh, this warrior trying to save a princess and save Hyrule, and stuff like that. I
Is
would
it
go
Hyrule or Hyrule?
Hyrule, Hyrule. I used to call it Hyrule. It just stuck with me. Okay, don't judge me. Tomato, tomato. You just got to bag on me, right? All right, so Banjo Kazooie is it's like in a similar way, right? You're saving your
Mm.
sister in the first game. I liked actually Banjo Tooie more, but I put Banjo Kazooie because it's the first one. And then so we have that one. Then we have BioShock.
Okay. I've never played
BioShock. Have you ever
BioShock.
played BioShock?
Mm-mm.
No? Oh
Nope.
my god. It's just like it's one of those games that like really takes you into to the time period, which I believe is like kind of set in the 50s. And again, it's like the artwork is just beautiful. Just like how Wind Waker was just so unique, it was the same
Yeah.
thing. It was one of those first games I felt like I was in there. It was like a movie. And it
Mm.
really took you in there. Like, like when you watch Lord of the Rings, right? The set pieces are just so amazing when just takes you into the story. It really
I can't
ingrains.
relate. I never watched Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I know that. Dune also, which I know you haven't watched, also was
I did
just. So,
watch the new Dune. I did not like it though.
did you read the book?
I would never read the Dune book ever.
Oh yeah, that's why. Dune book is really good. I recommend it.
It's just not my type of thing. Like I'm not really a Star Wars fan, and Dune gave me very much Star Wars, so that's why I didn't like it.
No, that makes sense. All right. But yeah, that's what BioShock is about. It takes place in the 40s,
Okay.
50s, something in that, underground like place that's like kind of dystopian. Um, so it's
Is it
really
a
good.
shooter? Or like what kind of game is it?
Yeah, it's like a first person shooter.
Okay.
Um, you fight these like big daddies, which are like these really huge submarines. That's what
Big
they're called.
Daddies.
Yeah, that's what they're called. And they're in submarine, like they're like the scuba helmets and stuff like that. Is big for anyone that knows like the cover art and stuff like that. That's number 9. Number 8 is Batman Arkham City. I had to pick that between the three. Well, Batman Arkham Asylum really pushed the envelope and really kind of like, you know, changed everything. And now, like, if you look at the Rocksteady games and like the Spider-Man from Insomniac that was released on PlayStation 4, they take that concept of how the fighting concept is like
Yeah.
they're the ones who really created it and made it like what it is today, right? It was back the Batman Arkham series, but Batman Arkham Knight just took what Arkham Asylum, the first game in the series, did and really pushed it to its limit. I didn't put Arkham City. I didn't put Arkham Knight, which is the third game, because they didn't really add much regarding like gameplay. I would say as much, just like the story is just like
Okay.
just kind of subsequent and just like adding to the story rather than. the gameplay, but the gameplay in Arkham Knight and like the additions of like new weapons and stuff like that was much better in Arkham City compared to Arkham Asylum, and that's why I picked Arkham City. Number 7, Shadow of the Colossus.
All right.
Amazing. You
Never
ever played
played
Shadow
it.
of the Colossus? Shadow of the Colossus is a great game. It was just so different for its time. It was for the PlayStation 2. The way that it was set is that there's no like little enemies, no side quests, no nothing. All you do in the whole game is you fight 9 different huge titans. Like attack, think of like Attack on Titans, like big.
Damn.
Of course, yeah. So like one of them you have to climb on top of it and try to fight it, like going on top of it and stuff like that. But you only have to do
Mhm.
like 9 of them. It was so different and so unique that I was like, wow, this is like so, and it's never been really a game kind of similar to that. So that's why I picked that game, right?
All
Now,
right.
GoldenEye, that was the next one. GoldenEye 007 was for the Nintendo 64. One of the greatest games of all time. A lot of fights ended up in that game, real life because, people would,
Screen cheating.
yeah, they would cheat by looking at people's screens. Um, but it's such an influential game. A lot of the shooters that you see in regards to how it's placed is just like kind of based on that, I would say. And it's so good. Um, that one. And then we got Pokemon Blue, Red, and Yellow. Same reason you play, the nostalgia factor really um, plays a big part in that.
Mhm.
That's why I picked that. And then we have Age of Empires for the computer, right? It's the only
Okay.
like it's such a different game because it's Age of Empires, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a real time war strategy game. You pick a civilization, you kind of build them through, depending on the game, like through the ages, right? And you can get to like build your own people and then attack other settlements, other like cities, right? So I just really kind of like that as well. I thought it was like really, 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 really good. So that one is
Gotcha.
number 4. Now we got our top 3, my top 3. So I'm gonna put the Super Smash Bros. Series. I'm gonna go with what you said, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And I know what you said was a fighting game, right? However, it's a little different from like those other fighting games, like what's it called? Tekken. Um,
It's similar in that it's like a strictly like horizontal fighting game. I would say that that's where the similarity starts and ends.
yep, and that's exactly. So that's like the difference in regards to that. But it's still a really good game. I really
Mhm.
like it.
I mean, it was on my top 10 too.
I
So
love it. Very different because you can also play with a lot of people, and so I have a lot of cousins, so we would all play. It's only gotten better as time has gone on because you play up.
and that really gets chaotic.
Yeah. hmm hmm So number 3, that was Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now number 2 is the reason, or number 2 and number 1 is why Breath of the Wild should not be considered best game of all time. So starting with our number 2, Elder Scrolls 6, Skyrim, right? Is number 6, right? Skyrim was just amazing. It just changed the whole landscape of like what an open world game should be. Yeah, I know there was Elder Scrolls like Morrowind before that, but it was
Mhm.
really Skyrim and like Oblivion before that as well, like after Morrowind. But it was
Right.
really Skyrim that kind of like took that and just like kind of pushed it to its limit. Having all of those different side quests that were really interesting to do, right? That
Mhm.
although weren't pivotal to the plot, they were still really cool. You could do hours of side quests and still not be done, you know?
Right.
And to be able to travel also around all of the continent was just amazing too. It just took sometimes so much time, right? Until you get the fast travel and you could just like click a city and then just bam, right? But that was just
Okay.
amazing. I really liked it. That was definitely number two, and the reason why it takes over, like Breath of the Wild, because that's that's like the blueprint for Breath of the Wild,
Yeah.
right? I always thought that that's a blueprint for a lot of games. Like you see, like we talked about Sonic Frontiers being a open world, right? Because that's just
Mhm.
the new thing to do, right? And so that's what we got to understand. That's part of the reason why you can't, uh, pick um why you can't pick Breath of the Wild as your top or number one of all time. And then finally, best game in my opinion of all time is actually a Zelda game, but it's not Breath of the Wild. It's Ocarina of Time.
What
Oh my
system was
god,
that for?
Nintendo 64, but there's been re-releases. Damn, that game is just so good. I
That,
played that game.
that's why it's your number one because it's just so good.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have words for it. It's just like,
It took your it left you speechless. That's why it's your number one.
yes. And it's probably the most important game of like the series. Um, if I'm not wrong, I think it's the first 3D platformer for a lot of the like 64 games are the first 3D ones. So it was the
Hmm.
first 3D one. And then two, it also is very important to the story. Um, and what I mean by that, it was like the game, it developed two timelines, which are actually like canon, right? Within the Zelda universe.
Hmm.
So a bunch of like there'll be like different timelines for, I think, like if you go I really forgot exactly, but certain games follow one timeline and the other one certain games follow the second timeline. So the first timeline is like, in Ocarina of Time, Link, the main character, he there's three timelines, I think. There's like the timeline where Link goes into the future.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah,
Yeah.
ever play Ocarina of Time?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so there's three. Yeah, so it costs three timelines or two.
The only Zelda game I played was Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no. So it's so important to the lore of that.
Hmm.
So that's why I picked that as my final one. But yeah.
Okay. And my honorable mentions, I would have to say, are Dynasty Warriors 4, Halo 3, uh, Mario Party, um, Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup. What else? Naruto Shinobi Strikers, which is the newest Naruto game they have out.
Hmm.
Donkey Kong 64.
Yep.
Uh, GoldenEye, I'd say. Um, what else? Oh, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie game that came out for the Sega Genesis. That's gonna be an honorable mention
Hmm.
for me. And I think that's it.
Hmm. All right. Well, we went through a whole list. So that's good. Whew. A
We'll have
lot.
to have Steve give his list when he's on.
Oh, whenever he's on more.
Wait, weren't you guys on last night?
Yeah, we were last night.
You should just had him give his list then.
We talked about, yeah. Oh, because you weren't there. We saved it for today because he said he was going to be on, and then he never came. I think he's just too tired. But yeah, I guess we will end it there, and then we'll talk more.
So thank you for joining the Anything and Everything podcast. I'm Dan Gill, and we got not Steve is a liar, but what's your name?
Zodro.
Zenodro. And before we end, go and stream All I Ever Wanted by Zenodro. It is available on all streaming platforms. Give it a listen, give it a like, download, buy it, do whatever, with that. More to come. Uh,
Like, hate on it, I don't care. If you want to hate on it, go ahead. I could take
listen, but they
again.
still listen to it, so
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's what matters at the end of the day, right? It's the streams. The streams
streams.
provide the means. The streams provide the means to get the greens.
Thanks,
Mm.
thanks everyone.